Now that we've kind of covered the anterior ligaments, the posterior tibitalis, medial deltoid ligaments, let's have a look now if we feel like there's a block, a general block at the back of the ankle. So again, if the patient's saying to you, oh, I just feel like it's generally restricted at the back of my ankle, that's what's stopping me from going any further, then potentially there could be some protective tone laid down by the nervous system that's stopping these tissues go through a full range of motion. So what we do with that approach is we show the nervous system that ultimately it's safe to tolerate load. Okay, so we put them in pain-free into these positions, okay, and then we can use an isometric, okay, where we can just get them to squash an orange, keep the knee over the toes, show the nervous system it's safe. So I can do 6 sets of 6-second holds here in this position. I can add some perturbations depending on where I am in my graded exposure program, okay, just to show the nervous system that it's safe. So what I would do then is I would do this exercise and then I'd go back and check the knee to wall test, and then usually what you'll find when you do that is that the nervous system, it almost self-organizes and allows that cilius to go through a full range of motion. So again, if there's any protective tone through cilius, we put the person in a position where we show them it's safe to tolerate load. We give them no choice but to tolerate load. The nervous system, it updates its belief system, and then very often the body self-organizes and the range of motion restores very, very quickly. Okay, and then this might be a final exercise that you might actually want to use to improve ankle dorsiflexion. And again, we would use this type of exercise if we felt that the restriction was some protective muscle tone generally in the back of the joint. So again, if we felt like these muscles weren't doing their job, what we could do is we could just put them in a position, again, just like the previous exercise where we focus more on cilius. Now we can start to get everything working together. And again, the key thing here is if you do a bridge, that you're doing the bridge by intent through the foot. Okay, so again, we're getting that midfoot to do some work. And then very often what we find is that if we increase the load tolerance through the cilius and through all of these muscles here, so again, if you wanted more flexor digitorum longus, you wanted all of these muscles, then you could really think about using a conscious cue, right? I want you to push through the balls of toes 2 to 5. If you wanted more flexor hallicus longus, then you could say, okay, I want to push through the pad of the big toe more so when you're doing these exercises. So again, with these exercises, and the same with the slouches, you can have conscious intent to really bias one particular tissue. Okay, so again, with this exercise, cilius is getting a lot of load, but we can get flexor hallicus longus to do more work in this position by actually going right on the way back up from this position. I want you to really push through the pad, not the ball, but the pad of your big toe. So when they push through the pad of the big toe, they're really going to recruit flexor hallicus longus. So they're going to have to recruit flexor hallicus longus. Now we're using a top-down cue, which is okay. And again, it's not the be-all and end-all, but it's a good starting point. So then when we get them up to here, we want flexor hallicus longus to be working outside of higher center control. Ultimately, what we want to do is want to go right. If the ankle joint is restricted and it's causing pain, then what isn't doing its job? So that's where then, as I said, we find, okay, we might want to desensitize the symptoms. So in this case, for example, the symptoms might be we want to do some low tolerance through some of these tissues here. But again, the actual 80% of what's not doing its job, we might want to get cilius, we might want to get the hamstrings or whatever we feel isn't doing its job, that maybe the nervous system doesn't want to go into this range and use this range. So that's ultimately how we're going to get long lasting relief, because if we're just using exercises such as our band exercises and stuff like that, that's all great. But that's exercises around here. Real life, we need a lot of high level load tolerance through the muscles, through the ligaments, through the fascia, through the skin. The nervous system needs to be happy to go through these ranges of motion. And usually what I see is that people are pain-free, they get a little bit increased range of motion, they send them back into real life, and then ultimately the nervous system goes, whoa, I'm not happy to progress here, I don't feel safe, and then usually the pain will return or they'll lose range of motion very, very, very quickly again. So again, we want to bridge that gap from most traditional physio exercises where they're top-down cues, they're conscious cueing. We want to get that person to move, as Louis Gifford said, with thoughtless, fearless movement, so we can bridge that gap from low level to high level rehab. And again, with that, there's going to be loads of movement, speeds of movement. There's a lot of different variables that we can have. We want to make sure that we're happy with our hopping progressions so that these tissues can react where there's no time to consciously cue, and then we ultimately get them back to thoughtless, fearless movement. So you can see with some of the exercises today, with the change of direction exercises that we were doing, you know, we're doing these exercises here, but they're actually on the graded exposure ladder, they're around here, but we're preparing the person to get back to that top end speed and that change of direction. So again, we just take them through the step-by-step system, and that's ultimately where you need the A pillars of the go-to therapist, that we want to make sense of their injury history, what tissues may they be avoid loading, how can we show the nervous system it's safe, and give them the most simple and direct path to get from ultimately A to D, E, F, or whatever it is. So we need to make sense of the objective, we need to communicate effectively to the patient, we need to design a plan that's bespoke to the patient, we need to use our hands-on treatment to desensitize these tissues quickly and effectively if needs be, but without being reliant on our hands. And then we want to bridge that gap with the low level to the high level rehab, and then ultimately then we want to continue to build strength and build endurance with stuff like this, so that the nervous system's happy to actually use these tissues when we put external loads on the body.